What's up, Dragon Brood? We want to talk about some cards from the Hobbit that are probably safe for you to craft or go buy if you want to be building new decks in Standard at set release. However, there is a real caveat here I want to put is that we normally have a really big data point in the early access events that we can review and talk to some other people who are building a lot of these decks that we didn't have this time. So that is one major data point that we're missing. However, we still use some of our other normal resources and put this list together. So hopefully, this works out for you. But let's talk about some cards. Now, the first one up is My Precious, right? It's a 3 mana legendary equipment, which in and of itself isn't a big deal. But this is mostly about the adventure side on this card. And I think that's the case with a few cards in this set is if the adventure side is what your deck already wants, you get the rest as a bonus. And here you have a Lure of Power, which is 1 in a black at an instant. Additional cost to cast it, you sacrifice a creature, you draw 2 cards. If you're playing a deck that already is okay with sacrificing creatures for one of its other benefits, whether you're trying to get stuff in the graveyard, you're trying to trigger death abilities, whatever, then this card actually is fine. You just replace 2 of, let's say, of the other cards that's letting you sacrifice your things, and then you get the equipment side that says equip creature has hexproof and can't be blocked. You equip for 2 and pay 2 life. Don't think this card's crazy good by any means. I don't think it's a rush out and have to craft 4. But like I said, 2 copies I think are actually reasonably safe on a card like this. And then giving something hexproof and your opponent can't block it basically means they have to find a board sweeper to deal with it or get rid of everything else and make you sacrifice it. So yeah, I think I'm okay with that. This is a case of, again, if you need the adventure side or already doing something like that for 1 or 2 mana, this becomes pretty much an upgrade over whatever that other card is. Settle the wreckage. This is where I get to put my typical rant of, hey, more board sweepers, because we got to put them in every set. Like, again, not upset that board sweepers exist, but we literally get some in every set, and we don't really need any more right now in Standard. But that being said, settle the wreckage, 2 white. It is an instant. Exile all attacking creatures target player controls. That player searches their library for any number of basic land cards. Put those cards onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Here's the thing. I think this card's just going to be good in general. It's going to be playable. Is it going to be better than Day of Judgment? Some cases, yes. Some cases, no, right? It just depends on if you're okay with letting your opponent go search for lands, what type of decks the metagame ends up having. But make no mistake, being able to have an instant speed board sweeper is still good, especially in a scenario where your opponent has instant effects or something to put counters on things, and you can get them to commit all that stuff. Then you go ahead and settle the wreckage, right? So this card is still very good. It was good before. It's probably still going to be good now. I don't think that's a real surprise. Just for people who are newer to Magic, may not have played against Settle the Wreckage because, hell, I don't know. It feels like it's been like 8 or 10 years since it's been in Standard. But the card is still very good. Belladonna Took, 1 and a white for a 2/2 halfling citizen. Whenever a token you control enters, you gain a life if it's the first time you resolve this ability. If it's the second time you draw a card, if it's the third time you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. There's some token decks that were already playing a few things to gain life. And I think if you are in that space, then this card's a pretty good upgrade, right? You're still going to get to gain the life, but some turns you're going to get to draw a card. Some turns you're going to put counters on everything. Or if you're attacking with something like an Call, then you're just going to get all the abilities every time, right? You attack, I make 2 or 3 tokens. Awesome. Boom, 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 right? And also, it doesn't say just creatures. It just says when a token you control enters. So you could be making treasure, you can be making maps, right? This could go into a few different decks I can think of right now. So a fun card that I think you can add 2 of early to experiment with, but this could be a 3 of in a lot of lists. Just lots of value potentially from this card. Oh man, Bilbo's Gambit. 1 and a white for an instant. You can gift a treasure, return target spell to its owner's hands, and if the gift was promised, players can't cast spells this turn. Now, first things first, be aware that it's not just your opponent that can't play spells. If you gift the treasure, that means you as well. But I could see this being one of those weird situations where maybe the aggro decks want to play this against Settle the Wreckage. You know what I mean? Like, and then now that I know my opponent has Settled the Wreckage, we can only attack with like 3 things next turn instead of committing everything or whatever. There's going to be some weird scenarios that pop up because of this card. You can also target things that you own if you want to for particular reasons, right? There's all kinds of weird things you could do with this, but the fact that it can just stop whatever and just keep your opponent from playing future spells is huge, right? Think about the times that your opponent may go to counter a thing and you're like, okay, cool. Well, now neither of us are going to get to cast any more spells. So you make them commit whatever else they're going to do right then at instant speed and add it to the stack. Because if not, they don't get an opportunity to do it. So yeah, I think this card's really, really interesting. Again, I wouldn't go crazy, but if you're playing a hyper aggro deck that just needs to survive one turn, right, to keep your opponent from doing something big, yeah, sure, why not? Have a treasure. You can't do anything for the rest of this turn, and then I get to attack and win, right? Like that just seems to be the place this is going to go. Now, I also think if you're playing best of 3, this is a great sideboard card against a variety of things. So this card, while I think the current price tag has finally come down to a normal price, because when it started, I think it was like 15 to 17 bucks. You can find these now for around $3, and I think that's pretty good if you're going to be playing best of 3 and you want to put a couple on the sideboard. I think it's fine. But I think if you want to craft these and play with them, yeah, this card, we're going to probably get annoyed by this card and get tired of seeing it. Oh, as a reminder, if you're also worried about finding out some cards that you should probably hold off on, we do have that companion video as well, so you should check that out after this one. So just want to let you know about that one. But back to more cards. Next up is the Arkenstone. 5 mana for a legendary artifact. It has an adventure of a sorcery. Search your library for a legendary creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Then the other side is creatures you control get +1/+1. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card. What I like about this is that, one, you can put it into a variety of decks. If you have those decks that just have like 1 or 2 legends that you want to search for, you can do that. It also says legendary creature card, so be aware of that. You can't go get like a planeswalker with it or something. But even if you don't care about creatures all that much, just being able to draw a card during your end step every turn is always going to be good. But I think because of the 5 mana, this is definitely a card that you're not going to go, hey, I need to craft 4 of these. 1 or 2 is going to be fine in most cases. But even if you're doing something like, say, the Naya Legends, right? Those cards, those decks get played a bit on the ladder, that type of stuff. I think this is totally fine. It's a tutor to go find the card that you want, or just everything gets a bonus and now I get extra cards. So hard to complain about this card, but again, I wouldn't go crazy with it. I think it's safe to craft, but you don't need to craft a lot. I actually went back and forth on this one for a bit before I finalized putting it on the list, but the Queen of Dale, 1 and a white for a 2/1 human noble. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, you recruit, which is draw and then discard, and if you discard a creature spell, you get a 1/1 token. Here's the thing about this card. I think it's actually pretty good, especially if you're in a situation where you're playing against a lot of, let's say, the 4-color control deck with all the removal spells and whatever. Even if they target this with the removal, the worst case scenario, you got to draw and discard, right? So you get the best quality card coming up, which is actually super cool. I don't have a problem with that at all. And you make your opponent waste removal on what's probably overall going to be a lower value creature than something else. I think this is a card that could fit into several lists, whether it's just mono white aggro piles, whether it's kind of green white aggro stuff. Obviously, something that's got a lot of creatures, so you can take advantage of the recruit. But I think this card is actually pretty sweet. I think people are sleeping on this a little bit. Also, don't forget that there's decks that aren't necessarily even killing your creatures, right? We're talking about the Is It Prowess decks. There's like, well, during your turn, I guess I'm going to go ahead and opt or whatever and just draw a card. It's like, okay, right? You also get to draw and discard. Maybe make a 1/1, especially if you have duplicates of this, which is nice. With it being a rare, you just discard the other one and make a token. So yeah, this card's going to find its home somewhere. I think this is a very cool card to experiment with, but I think it's just good enough in general. And based on the price, there's a lot of people who believe in this card also. And yes, Smaug the Magnificent made my list. And hear me out, because I think some people that are going to be, Smaug's overrated. You shouldn't be playing this card. But check this out. It's 2 red for a 4/3 flying haste. Whenever it attacks, it deals damage equal to the number of treasure tokens you control to any target. So it could be a creature, it could be an opponent, or it could be a planeswalker, I guess. At the beginning of your upkeep, you create a treasure token. Now, that all being said, and I get how people feel about this card, I do think right now the price tag on it, if you're going to buy it in paper, is a bit overrated. So I was wait a little bit on that if you could. But on Arena, wild cards are the same price regardless, right? The thing I'll say for this, though, I think if you're playing some type of hasty red deck, mono red goblins or whatever, this is a cool card to come over the top with. Also, if you want to pair it with just playing dragons, there's still the Boros Dragons deck or whatever. To be able to play this with the Hellkite that you could warp for 3 and then play this the following turn, then follow up again with the regular side of the Hellkite, right? Like that could be pretty good. I think that's a pretty sweet line with actually not trying too hard in those decks. And you're generating treasure along the way, which is also very good. We also don't know about a card like this. I think if you want to take advantage of the cards in the set that are generating treasure or other cards that already exist that generate treasure, then this becomes even better, right? Because now when you're playing it on turn 4 or turn 5, and let's say you've built up 3 or 4 treasure, well, now you get to play it, attack, pick something off, and get 4 damage in, right? Before your opponent really gets to deal with it. So yeah, I'm on board with this card. I think it's actually super sweet. I wouldn't let too many people discourage you. I just think the trick is we have to figure out what the decks look like for the card because it doesn't just like auto seat into something. You're going to have to adjust a few things to take advantage of it, but I think the card is pretty cool. Another one I wanted to throw into this list is the Great Goblin. It's 1 and 2 Rakdos mana for a 3/2. Whenever you put 1 or more counters on a Goblin, Orc, or army, you get to deal 2 damage to target opponent. Whenever another Goblin, Orc, or army dies, exile the top card of your library, and you can play it until the end of your next next turn. Now, there's a very interesting thing about this. I don't even know if the first part matters. But even when I was reading this card initially, I think I made the mistake several other people did and went, well, how many times are we putting counters on stuff other than when we're making the army tokens or whatever? And I think when you look at it that way, you're like, yeah, this card's not that good. But I think when you just look at the second ability, you're spending 3 mana to get a 3/2, which is fine, right? But now if a creature dies, you just get access to more cards. And the thing to be aware of is that this isn't even just non-token creatures, right? So any goblin that dies, you get the benefit. And it doesn't seem to be predicated on this card even being on the battlefield. So you could lose a bunch of stuff, everything triggers, this dies in like a Day of Judgment, but you still have access to 3 more cards, right? So there's some cool stuff that this card could allow to maybe help goblins be a little bit more of a real deck. So if you're a fan of goblins, obviously, because you need goblins to die to trigger the ability, then you know what? I might try 2 or 3 of these in your list. It's a reasonable beater at 3 power, but the upside is actually pretty sweet on this one. But yeah, again, I think we're going to have a little more experimentation this season, which, depending on your perspective, is good or bad because we didn't have the early access thing where people got to try out a lot of cards and give you some heads up beforehand. But I hope this is the type of information that helps you out. And whether you're watching this video or a companion video, remember, like always, this is just one opinion. And yes, you may disagree with it, and that's totally okay. I think you should consume lots of different people's opinion and use that to make an educated choice for whatever it is that you need for your decks. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.